networking, referrals, strategies for success, and real-life stories from professionals who are building a business based on relationship marketing. Welcome to the Caerusnet podcast. Here, you'll learn how to stay connected in the local business community and become that person others get to know, like, and trust, and refer to. And now, your host, Caerusnet founder, Steven Ziskowski.
Welcome to the Caerusnet podcast. This is a podcast I've been anticipating really since I started the Caerusnet podcast a little over a year ago. I've been wanting to share the story of somebody who's had a more positive impact on me and on the Caerusnet network than really just about anybody I've ever known in the Caerusnet network. So I've got with me today Jim Campbell from Heartland Insurance. Jim's specifically loves working with commercial insurance. That's his real passion. And he has been in Caerusnet since January of 2010. So thank you, Jim, for 13 years of relationships and handshakes and referrals and visitors. I've got you on my phone as number one. It just says Jim number one on my phone because you're number one in my book. And I've always been able to count on you. Sometimes in life we get knocked down a little bit, we get back up and you just keep going. And I appreciate people that keep their chin up and always do the next best thing. So Jim, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to learning with you a lot.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's a privilege to be on the podcast, but more importantly, to be able to go out to the Caerusnet folks. I mean, when we look at it back in the Ann Arbor days of setting that group up, we had maybe 6 groups at the most. And now look what you have with different facilitators and all this. So the planning and the method, the trials and tribulations of the group from the pandemic to now Zoom, you look at it saying it didn't hold me back. We're still helping business conduct business. And it's a method that you can do it from any place now. So the one-on-one person is valuable, very valuable. But when you're not able to, you can use this platform and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I'm very grateful for it as well, too, especially in today's day and age where a lot of businesses struggle to find the right number of employees and struggle to do all the things that they need to do to manage their business. Really people appreciate now the fact that wherever they are, they can be part of the meeting and it doesn't, have a big interruption in their day the way that it possibly did before with traveling and all that other stuff. So thank you for making that transition as well, too, to doing Zoom. Jim, I always have a question that I'm curious about anytime I have a guest, and I think I remember who it was that told you about Caerusnet. So we're going to be going down memory lane here because I think we're talking about the end of 2009, maybe. You were speaking with somebody and they told you about Caerusnet. Can you recap that for us really quickly? Because you've told a lot of people about Caerusnet, but somebody told you about it to begin with.
Yes, in my old age, I have not got dementia, but it was Steve Devine from Divine Doors, who we were talking about networking, and he says, hey, take a look at this group, Caerusnet. He was a member at the time, or he may have just left, but he said, we were talking about referring, and he said, check out the Brighton group. And there was some people in the Brighton group, and that's where I struck with the Ann Arbor 10 o'clock group, or 11 o'clock group now, in being able to be part of it, and then have moved to the Brighton group, still retaining the Ann Arbor group, and then forming the Heartland, which is now the Brighton 10 o'clock group, which has made a fantastic turn of when we couldn't get anybody in the group, and now it's one of your larger groups.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Sometimes the teams take a life of their own. There's synergy in terms of how people interact and what everybody's priorities are sometimes can really make a big difference in whether a group grows to be really robust or whether a group is, maybe not as potent that way. But I think each team has the capacity and the ability to really, really grow. So yes, thank you, Steve from Divine Doors. I remember you well, and yeah, he was one of my early clients, and I'm so glad he referred you. I remember meeting you at a Northwestern Mutual office in Ann Arbor when we were starting the Ann Arbor team, and I was looking for somebody that could really, help and be an anchor in that team. And you were that person. We met after the first meeting, and you sit there with the pen and paper. Who do we need, Steve? Who do we need? And just started writing things down. I'm thinking to myself, man, I wish there was more people like Jim and Campbell.
Yep, back in the Craigle days.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, geez. I mean, I guess that's a real interesting thing now too, because I've been doing this for 15 years. I still have a wonderful core of people that have been doing it for a long time on a lot of teams, but I've had, business is a transitionary thing for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that aren't even doing the same thing that they were doing 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So we do meet a lot of people and we lose a lot of people. I often kind of laugh that I've been fired more than I've been hired, but you just keep doing your best and keep trying to help people in your present day. Let's talk about commercial insurance, and let's talk about your approach to commercial insurance and your approach to how you build your business. Where was it that you decided relationships? Where was it that you decided service was going to, and I'm talking about being a servant to other businesses. Where was it that you decided that was the route that you wanted to go in terms of growing your own business? How did that happen?
Well, as I got into the business many years ago when black hair was around, you got an opportunity to do the home, the auto, the business, the life. As you proceed in your journey, and like I said, I've been doing this about 40 years, you run across of saying the life has become more complex, buy-sell agreements and so forth. Then you look at the home and auto. People call up and say, hey, Johnny's buying a new car. What kind of car is he buying? Well, he's thinking about 3. So now you're sitting there spending a little time trying to run numbers on all 3 cars. Okay, here's home. You're trying to do that, and renters and stuff, which is, I still do some. But I found that the bigger endeavor in regards to the number of clients available, and when I look at that, the number of clients available is at State Farm, Allstate, Farmers. A lot of them may not do that type of commercial. If I'm available to do that with my markets, I can help them out. And it's been a good partnership with the Caerusnet people that I've in my groups that I'm able to offer them the home and auto. And if they need assistance in regards to the business, that I will not take their business from them. And it's a more of a trust matter where you're saying, hey, I can trust this person that I can give him business. He can help my client out and I can still retain that client.
Yeah, it's interesting because not everybody has that. Let's do the best, because yeah, we can all do this. Some of us, we can all do a lot of the same things, but when you're specialized and focused in a certain area, and people also trust you, because a lot of people, they're untrusting to start with, and you've got to kind of break through that barrier. I think you do a lot of giving first, don't you? You pass the first referral to people to try to help them realize that you want to be helpful and that you mean what you say.
Well, in talking with some of the agents that I work with at Farm Bureau, Liberty Mutual, and so forth, they understand that I'm not going to be out there shopping their business. So it's helped a lot. Our markets, where we have more than just 1 or 2 markets, that we can go there and say, hey, here's the best value, not the best price. It's always sometimes coverage too. That if you say, hey, here's a good price, but this person needs this endorsement for the contractor or whatever, we're able to do that.
So let's talk about your work day just a little bit, because people tell me all the time they see you at all different events all the time, and you're also involved in different chambers of commerce and a figure there. How do you get your work done? Do you have a team of assistants that help you take things through the process? Where are you most involved in the actual transaction with the client?
Well, in most cases, we do the prospecting and the sales side. The renewal side, I do have people helping me, and I'm trying to become more relevant in that renewal process where they may struggle with someone not getting back to them or questions. But I find that being an ambassador with some of the chambers of Ann Arbor and Brighton, it gives me the opportunity to go out and see clients, talk to them. How can I be an assistance to you? And it's not always, I'm here to provide coverage. How can we help you with your chamber experience? And oh, by the way, if you need something, we can do this. So you may see someone that says, hey, can we talk? Because I'm having a hard time getting quotes on my business. Or look at my policy, see if I can get a better value.
Mm.
And like I said, it's not always price. Because if you're selling on price, you might as well go to the $1.25 store. But once again, the value of the $1.25 store may not be the same as a Meijer product.
For sure.
Because it costs twice as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It still has better value.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not always easy for somebody who's buying something to wrap their head around, especially if they're a younger person. But if you've lived your life for any length and you've taken some lumps on the head and you've collected some wisdom, then you start to realize that you ultimately get what you pay for.
Well, and when you find out when you have that claim, whether it's home, auto, business, maybe someone took some equipment and you say, well, you never asked me to cover equipment, and so it's with, especially now with cyber, hey, I got hacked, what can we do? So it's always somewhere you try to be, foregoing and say, hey, think about this coverage, think about employment practice. If you ever fire someone, did you do it correctly, and so forth. So it's always changing.
Yeah, and that's so one thing that I'll just encapsulate a little bit is, we talk at the Caerusnet meetings, all of us, we talk about we don't want to be transaction oriented with the people that are referred to us, with our own clients. We don't want to be thought of as a transactional business because, like you said, then you're just a commodity. You bring no value to the picture. But when you break from that transaction zone into the relationship zone, where people actually go, wow, this person's actually going to bat for me for things I wasn't even thinking about. Wow, this person's introducing me to other people. Wow, this person's bringing up other ideas and suggestions. All of a sudden, you're in the relationship zone. And some of the work that you do with the chambers allows you to be a servant to other businesses. You go in there truly with the intention of just wanting to be helpful. And the neat thing that I've seen about that is when you've been helpful to people, their shoulders soften a little bit. They're not as protected. They're not as rigid about seeing you. As a matter of fact, then they go, geez, Jim, you've been so helpful. I don't even know what life was like before you walked into the picture. But what do you do again, Jim? And then Jim's like, well, I'm a commercial insurance expert. And they go, oh my goodness, would you review our policy? And what a difference that is versus being somebody who's going into a situation to take. They're in the transaction zone. Hey, I'm here from the Ann Arbor or Brighton Chamber to give you your welcome kit. And at the same time, would you like me to review your insurance policy? You'd be let out the door quicker than you walked in. So it's really smart what you do. You give people a chance to experience a real relationship, and then they can inquire with you. Would you see, is that how most of it happens? Like you've helped somebody and then they go, Jim, why aren't you reviewing my commercial insurance?
Well, yeah, and I'm just thinking, for example, Michelle Cousineau. Her and I met, new member of the chamber, sat down, and she asked, she asked some questions. We talked, we sat down for a 30-minute meeting, and I gave her endless referral books. She read it front to cover. And now what she's doing now is she's got her own Colorado Caerusnet group and so forth. And she's, I don't write her insurance, never asked her to. But if she does, yeah, I'll help her. But in the meantime, she's able to get her business going and be successful. And I think that's more important than saying, hey, here I am, right? I want to write your insurance.
Right.
Because most people, you look at it going, oh, is that all he wants or she wants to do is write my business?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very fine line. And I think that the cool thing about that is that, with somebody like a Michelle, you help her in lots of ways. She comes and joins the Wednesday 8 o'clock Brighton team. She's been a great resource to people on that team, both not just providing referrals, but also delivering engraved gifts and other things to people, brightening up people's day. And then not only that, she decided that she wanted to start a Caerusnet team. So what happens with somebody like Michelle is she's indirectly benefiting you by helping other people that are also in your network. And then that comes back to you ultimately eventually. So you don't get all caught up into when it's going to happen. You just believe that ultimately the good stuff comes back to you.
Yeah, and the second example, very shortly, is that Mike from Mitten Junk. Met with him, referred him to the group. I think he's doing very well. And we just provided coverage for his company. Excellent. But on the plus side, we probably saved him $4 or $5 grand at least. So he's beneficial of that, of saying, hey, the relationship of Caerusnet was able to say, I've grown my business, saved money, and made many connections that are servicing me.
Yeah, that's the very big picture view. Hey, we're approaching about 3 minutes left on our podcast today, so I'm hoping to get a lot out of you in this last 3 minutes, and I've gotten a lot from you already, so I really appreciate it. I always like to ask people, there are two different types of members in Caerusnet. There's new members. There are people that are figuring it out. They're just getting started. Maybe some have some experience positively in the networking and referral space. Maybe some are just doing it for the first time. And then the other member is somebody that's been in Caerusnet for years. And with those people, some of them just get it, like Scott Lee and so many others. It's just part of their life. They've now made referrals and networking a part of their business. They don't wake up in the morning and go, I wonder if I should be networking anymore. It works for them. They like it. It's in their comfort zone. What advice would you have, for new members to get their relationships, to get their membership off on the right track? Your best piece of advice for new members. And then the last question is, what's your best advice for a member who's been around for X number of years, that maybe is kind of coasting a little bit? How can they kind of get back in the game and start being real relevant?
Well, number one advice would be, if I was joining Caerusnet, stick with the program. You say, give it a year commitment. Make that commitment. Yeah, it could be some rough trails, but depending on what type of business you are, there's usually someone that you can work with that says, hey, I can refer you, or you could be a good partner. Second thing, if there's some people that are seasoned, that you might want to reach out to them and saying, hey, I'm struggling, or can you give me some advice? That's what you might do there. Once again, of saying, if you're a seasoned person and saying you are struggling, what are some of the things that you're struggling with? You've got some resources in these groups, for example, like a Jason Tracy and so forth, that you sit down and say, Jason, let's have some coffee. You're not in my group, but tell me, here's what's going on. What advice would you give me? So you reach out and say, hey, maybe you need to sometimes pull up the big boy pants and just say, I need to stay on track. I need to prospect. If you don't have prospects to work with, you're probably going to dry up. So why do I work with the chamber as much? I get maybe 20 prospects that I can see each month at least to go visit and talk to and learn about their business. So if you learn about their business, you can refer them. Therefore, they may refer someone back to you. So once again, you just kind of stick with the program. If you get stuck, see some people who may have some advice. I mean, you look at our person, trying to think of his name, that SEO.
And Mark Hosh, is that what you're thinking of?
Not Mark Hosh, but the used to run the Ypsilanti group.
Oh,
Very
Kevin
talented
Sabowski?
person. Yeah, Kevin
Yeah,
Sabowski.
EOS, yes.
So once again, if I was stuck on certain things, and maybe Jason may not, I'd talk to him, but I'd also talk to Kevin. I mean, I see some of the things that he's helped Joy Detling and others to make them a success. And, you know, when they come into the group and they're kind of, oh yeah, I think this could be good. And now they're flamethrowers out there. They're referring and they're really working their business and having a great time. Those are some of the talents that we have in this Caerusnet group that, to me, if you're kind of stuck, take a look at this, or maybe talk to you and say, hey, Steve, I'm not progressing as what I feel like. Any suggestions? I mean, you don't charge by the hour. You're saying, I want to help you to be a success. Those are some of the two things that I would look at. Give that commitment and talk to people.
Yeah, that's
Communication.
great advice. It's great advice. That's the Acres of Diamonds advice. Acres of Diamonds is a great book. It's this concept that everything that you probably really need is either already within you or closely around you. And yet most people are always looking over here or they're looking over there to try to find the answers. They think that maybe it's better over there. Maybe I should stop doing this and go do something else instead. Versus, again, like what you said, becoming a part of something, leveraging people, leveraging the experience, asking for help, asking for feedback, asking for questions, and being willing to listen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great advice.
As I always say, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I better get another room. So I don't know everything. I don't think a lot of people know everything. So we got to seek out. And that's what the group, you know, we're not an exclusive. We don't sit there and go, okay, you're not in our group, so I can't give you that little tidbit.
Yeah, and I think that that's a real big thing too. You know, we are an open network. The teams are open teams. The relationships are open to everybody in the network. We don't hold people back, like you said, and say, oh no, you can't talk to that person. They're in a different group. No, it's people are always going to send their referrals to the people that they feel are going to best help their clients. And there's so many different types of professions in the network that you know, diversity on the teams really, I think, is a critical component. Okay, so Jim, thank you so much for taking this time to spend with me today, to share with the entire network your story, your beliefs. It's been a real honor to have been fighting this fight with you shoulder to shoulder since 2010. And I really hope that we can keep doing this for a super long time. I know eventually one of these days you and I might decide to do something else with our lives, but until then, I am really, really happy to be fighting this fight with you. There's nobody I'd rather have in my corner than Jim Campbell.
Well, I'm sorry my light went off in the back, so it must be over, but I appreciate it, Steve, and I appreciate the Caerusnet group and all the people I've met. You know, over the, 10, 15 years or so forth, we've met a ton of people. Some didn't come in, but they're still friends.
Yeah. Yep. Lots of lifelong relationships that are formed there. Okay, Jim Campbell, thank you so much for being on the Caerusnet podcast.
All the places